Welcome back to the Senior Health Podcast, where aging is not something we fear, but something we can shape, nurture, and even celebrate. I'm Dr. Mark Hyman, and today we're talking about something that often gets ignored until it's too late: muscle loss after 60 and what you can do about it before bed tonight. Let me begin with a story. A few months ago, a patient named Richard came into my office. He's 74, fairly active, eats what most would call a clean diet. But he looked at me and said, "Doc, I feel like I'm slowly disappearing. Not sick, just fading." And you know what? He was right. Not emotionally, biologically. He was losing muscle mass quietly but consistently, something that affects nearly 1 in 3 older adults. And here's what's worse. Most people don't even realize it's happening until they struggle to climb stairs, get out of bed, or catch themselves after a stumble. So the real question is, why is this happening? And more importantly, what are we missing at night when the body is trying to rebuild? To help us answer that, I couldn't think of a better person to join me than someone who has spent over a century living this truth. Our guest today is one of the most respected physicians in Japan. He's not only over 100 years old, still active, still advising younger doctors, but he's also shaped how generations of Japanese elders eat, move, and age with dignity. He doesn't just teach longevity, he embodies it. Please welcome my friend and mentor, Dr. Shigiyaki Hinohara.
Thank you, Dr. Hyman. It is always a joy to share with your audience. And to those listening, whatever your age, I want to begin by reminding you, you are not too late to change. Your body may have slowed, but it has not stopped listening. In Japan, we understand that the night is not a passive moment. It is not the absence of activity. It is the time when repair begins. Bones mend, hormones balance, muscles are restored, but healing cannot happen in emptiness. If we sleep without giving the body what it needs, nutrients, minerals, quiet strength, then even rest becomes incomplete.
That's the key, isn't it? Everyone talks about eating enough protein during the day, but almost no one talks about the vitamins and nutrients the body needs at night to actually use that protein, to convert it into muscle tissue, not just waste.
We must feed the body when it is ready to receive. And often that moment is not breakfast. It is the hour just before sleep.
So today's episode is for anyone who feels their strength slowly fading. Anyone who thinks it's just aging. We're going to share 5 essential nutrients, simple, overlooked, and deeply powerful, that you can take before bed to help your body fight muscle loss. This isn't a gimmick, it's physiology, it's wisdom, and it might just help you get out of that chair a little easier tomorrow morning. Let's start with a simple but sobering fact. After the age of 30, we begin to lose muscle mass, slowly, quietly, about 3–5% every decade. But after 60, that decline speeds up, and unless we actively do something about it, by 70 or 80, many people have lost up to 1/3 of their muscle. Now, this isn't just about strength or vanity. It's about function. Muscle keeps you upright. It stabilizes your joints. It controls your blood sugar. And perhaps most importantly, it gives you independence.
In Japan, we have a word, ikigai, the reason for waking up in the morning. And without physical strength, even small joys like gardening, walking to the market, or playing with grandchildren begin to slip away. What's often misunderstood is that muscle doesn't disappear because of aging itself. It disappears because of inactivity, inflammation, and perhaps most dangerously, nutrient deprivation at night.
Exactly. I've had patients who walk, who stretch, who even lift light weights, and yet their muscle scans show steady decline. Why? Because they're going to bed on empty tanks. The body wants to repair, it just doesn't have the materials.
Let me ask you something, Mark. In America, dinner is often the heaviest meal full of calories. But are those calories truly nourishing, or are they just filling space?
That's a great question. I'd say most dinners are calorie-rich, but nutrient-poor. We see a lot of starches, processed fats, and maybe a piece of overcooked protein. But almost no one thinks about vitamins, minerals, or what their body needs after dinner while they sleep.
In our elder care homes, we look closely at what is given after sunset, because night is when the body becomes quiet enough to repair. But if magnesium is missing, if there's no vitamin D, no zinc, no amino acids, then the body has nothing to rebuild with. It becomes like a carpenter with no tools.
And this is where sarcopenia becomes so sneaky, because it doesn't cause pain. There's no alarm bell. One day you notice it's harder to get out of a chair. Then comes the hesitation at the stairs. Then comes the walker or the cane.
Yes. And sadly, many people think this is just getting old. But what if it's not? What if it's just a lack of repair?
That's exactly the shift we want to create with this conversation. Losing muscle doesn't have to be inevitable, but we have to understand the problem before we can fix it.
And the problem is not aging. The problem is forgetting to nourish while we sleep.
So coming up, we'll share 5 vitamins and nutrients that science and centuries of experience have shown to be essential for nighttime muscle preservation. But more importantly, we'll show you how and when to take them for the best effect.
And I will share a few simple habits from Japan. Nothing expensive, nothing extreme, but small steps that allow the body to keep its strength longer than most would expect.
If I had to pick one nutrient that's both wildly important and dangerously overlooked, especially in older adults, it would be vitamin D. And here's the twist, it's not really a vitamin. It functions more like a hormone, a conductor. And without it, your muscles can't play their part. Vitamin D3 helps regulate calcium absorption, supports your immune system, and boosts your mood. But what many people don't realize is that it directly affects muscle strength and balance. Low D3 has been linked to increased falls, poor coordination, and slower recovery after physical activity. And here's the thing, over 70% of seniors in the U.S. are deficient in it, especially those who stay indoors, wear long sleeves, or take acid blockers.
We face the same issue in Japan, especially among elders who are no longer active outdoors. The sun used to be our pharmacy. But now the windows are closed, the curtains are drawn, and with that, the body's natural supply of vitamin D disappears. Yet what fascinates me is that this vitamin, as you said, works more like permission. It tells the body you may now absorb calcium, you may now build bone, you may now hold strength. Without it, we may eat well, but absorb nothing.
Beautifully said. But let me challenge you on one thing. Some people believe they can get all their D3 from food, from eggs, fatty fish, fortified milk. But I've found that for most seniors, that's simply not enough. What's your view?
I agree, but with nuance. Food contributes, sunlight sustains. But for those over 65, especially those on medications or living in colder regions, supplementation is often necessary. However, timing matters. In Japan, we give vitamin D in the evening alongside magnesium, because that's when bone turnover and tissue repair increase. But I've noticed in the West, people take all their supplements with breakfast without asking when the body needs it most.
That's an important distinction. We're so trained to believe morning is better, but physiologically muscle repair happens while we sleep. That's when D3 does some of its best work, especially in maintaining postural strength and stabilizing muscles during REM sleep, which is when most people toss and turn.
And turning in bed for an elder is not just comfort, it is practice for independence. The ability to move under your own control, even while asleep, preserves dignity. But without D3, that ability fades. and often no one sees it until the fall happens.
That's the silent erosion we talked about. So for our listeners, here's a simple takeaway. Get your D3 levels checked. And if they're low, as they often are, talk to your doctor about supplementing. Most older adults do well with 1,000 to 2,000 IU. Daily, preferably taken at night with magnesium.
And if you can open your curtains in the morning, let the body remember the sun. Even light through the window speaks to your cells.
That's such a poetic reminder. Vitamin D isn't just chemistry, it's a conversation between your body and the world around you. Now let's talk about something so basic, so fundamental that most people forget. It even exists, magnesium. It's involved in over 300 enzyme reactions in the body, everything from nerve transmission to muscle contraction to blood sugar balance. But what really matters for our conversation today is this magnesium is essential for muscle relaxation and recovery during sleep. If you don't have enough magnesium in your system at night, your muscles can't fully relax. You might not even notice it, but your sleep becomes lighter. Your legs twitch more and your body misses the deep repair it was supposed to do.
This is one of the most overlooked minerals in modern life. In Japan, we observe that magnesium is not just about muscles, it is also about mood. Without it, sleep becomes shallow. The mind stays restless. And the body cannot begin the quiet work of regeneration. But here is my concern, Mark. Many people in the West consume foods that rob the body of magnesium-refined, sugar, alcohol, processed grains. And then they wonder why they feel tense, sore, or fatigued.
You're absolutely right. I call magnesium the great balancer. It calms the nervous system, softens the muscles, and even helps regulate heartbeat. But despite its importance, most of my older patients are deficient and don't even know it. Let me ask you something, doctor. In Japan, do you actively supplement magnesium in elder care, or is it still approached more through food?
Traditionally, we rely on foods like seaweed tofu, miso, and pumpkin seeds. But in modern settings, we've begun to integrate gentle supplementation, especially in the evening. Magnesium before bed has helped many of our elders fall asleep faster and, more importantly, stay asleep longer.
That's something I've noticed too. When patients add 200 to 400 milliliters of magnesium glycinate or citrate at night, not only do they sleep better, they wake up with less stiffness, less cramping, and interestingly, better morning blood sugar readings.
Of course, because when the body is not fighting tension all night, it can process glucose more efficiently. Recovery is not passive, it requires peace.
That's a beautiful phrase. Recovery requires peace, and magnesium provides that peace on a biochemical level. It tells the muscles you can rest now, you are safe.
In one of our care centers, we began offering a warm magnesium foot soak before bed. No pills, just 15 minutes of stillness. Within a week, residents reported deeper sleep and interestingly stronger legs.
I love that. It's not just what you take, it's how you receive it. So to our listeners, if you're struggling with restless sleep tightness or nighttime leg cramps, magnesium, maybe you're missing peace. And taking it before bed could be the key your muscles have been waiting for. Now let's move to a vitamin that's often seen as something for energy, but in reality, it plays a far deeper role in preserving strength as we age. I'm talking about vitamin B12. B12 helps protect the myelin sheath, the insulation around your nerves. Without that, signals from the brain to your muscles become slower, weaker, or distorted. And that leads not just to fatigue, but to muscle atrophy, balance problems, and even misdiagnosed neurological decline.
Yes, we often think of muscles as independent actors, but they are only as sharp as the messages they receive. When B12 is low, the nerves become hesitant and the muscles no longer trust themselves. That hesitation becomes weakness, and the tragedy, Mark, is that B12 deficiency is so easy to miss. It often hides behind forgetfulness, low mood, or just the phrase, "I don't feel like myself anymore."
You've nailed it. And here's what makes this even more urgent for seniors. As we age, our ability to absorb B12 from food declines, especially if someone is taking acid-blocking medications, metformin, or follows a mostly plant-based diet. So even if you're eating enough, your body may not be absorbing it. I've seen blood work in patients who eat eggs and fish regularly and still come back deficient.
That is why in many of our elder clinics we test for B12 regularly. But we also ask deeper questions. Has your handwriting changed? Do your feet feel strange, even in soft shoes? Is your balance different when you close your eyes? These small signs often reveal what blood tests do not.
That's so powerful, because once the nerve begins to fray, it takes time to recover. But catch it early, and B12 supplementation can literally reverse symptoms. I've had patients with numbness in their hands or unexplained leg weakness see dramatic improvements within weeks of correcting a B12 deficiency.
We often administer B12 in the evening, especially for those with muscle fatigue or sleep disturbances. It not only supports the nervous system, but it improves dream clarity. And dreams, too, are a form of neurological balance.
That's fascinating. I usually recommend a sublingual B12 methylcobalamin, specifically taken before bed. It bypasses the gut, and it's more bioavailable for older adults.
One caution, though, B12 is stimulating for some. In rare cases, it may cause restlessness if taken too late. So we always suggest observing how the body responds.
Excellent point. So to our listeners, if your legs feel slower, your steps less certain, or your memory just a little more distant than usual, B12 might be a silent partner worth checking. Talk to your doctor, test your levels, and remember it's not just about keeping the muscle strong, but keeping the communication line alive.
And where there is communication, there is still strength, even at 90.
Let's talk about a mineral that doesn't get much spotlight when it comes to muscle, but without it, none of the nighttime repair we've been discussing can actually happen. I'm talking about zinc, the quiet worker, the molecular repairman who stays up while you sleep. Zinc plays a critical role in protein synthesis, tissue healing, and even testosterone production, all essential if we want to hold on to muscle, especially after 60. But the truth is, most seniors are mildly deficient, not dangerously low, but just enough that the body starts cutting corners.
Yes, zinc is not dramatic, but it is tireless. And when it is missing, wounds heal slowly. Strength returns hesitantly, and even the appetite changes. In our tradition, we say zinc is the hand that stitches the muscle back together. But Mark, let me ask, do you think the West has underestimated zinc because its effects are not immediately felt?
Absolutely. People don't notice when zinc is working, but they sure notice when it's missing. Poor sleep, longer recovery after exercise, slow healing after a small fall. And here's the kicker. Many common medications deplete zinc: diuretics, ACE inhibitors, even antacids. So an older adult can eat well on paper and still fall short.
This is why we do not look only at diet, we look at function. Does the person bruise easily? Do they take longer to recover from colds or fatigue after gardening? These small clues often point to deeper deficiencies.
That's such a valuable lens. And here's what's fascinating: studies show zinc taken before bed not only improves tissue repair, but also enhances deep sleep, the stage when muscle growth hormone peaks. So again, timing matters.
We give a small dose in the evening, often paired with warm tea or a soft-boiled egg. Nothing aggressive. Just an invitation for the body to begin its quiet work.
And just like with B12 and magnesium, the form of zinc matters too. Zinc picolinate or citrate are generally easier to absorb, and it should never be taken on an empty stomach. It can cause nausea.
Also, balance is key. Too much zinc can deplete copper, so we always assess, not guess. Testing before supplementing is not weakness, it is wisdom.
That's right. So if you're listening and you've noticed slower recovery, weaker nails, more frequent colds, or even changes in your sense of taste, those might be gentle signals that zinc is in short supply, especially if you're trying to rebuild muscle while aging with grace.
Zinc works quietly, but what it builds lasts. And in old age, it is better to be steady than sudden.
We've talked about nutrients that build, protect, and restore. But now let's talk about one that clears the battlefield, omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA, the two long-chain omega-3s that reduce inflammation, protect the heart, and yes, play a crucial role in muscle preservation. What most people don't realize is that inflammation isn't just about swollen joints or red skin. Chronic low-grade inflammation slowly erodes muscle mass, disrupts sleep, and interferes with hormone signaling. And omega-3s are one of the most effective natural ways to quiet that fire, especially while you sleep.
In our elder communities, we often refer to omega-3s as the oil of gentleness. They soften the tissues, ease the vessels, and calm the inner noise that prevents true rest. But Mark, I do have a question. Do you find that people in the West view omega-3s more for heart health than for muscle and sleep?
Absolutely. Most people associate omega-3s with cholesterol and blood pressure, but rarely think about how they influence recovery. But the truth is, if inflammation is smoldering in the background due to stress-processed food or poor sleep, your body simply can't rebuild muscle efficiently, no matter how much protein you eat. Omega-3s give the signal, the danger has passed, you may repair now.
That signal is vital. I once had a patient 87 who said he felt like his body was holding its breath all night. We increased oily fish in his diet and introduced a small omega-3 capsule with his evening tea. Within 2 weeks, his joints ached less. His dreams became calmer, and he walked with more rhythm.
I've seen similar stories, and what's fascinating is that omega-3s also seem to improve sleep architecture, especially deep non-REM sleep. That's when muscle repair peaks. So even though we don't think of fish oil as a sleep supplement, it quietly supports the entire repair process.
And yet, quality matters. Not all oils are pure. Not all capsules are stable. We only recommend brands that are tested for heavy metals and oxidation. Because in old age, trust is not given easily to people or to pills.
Well said. I usually suggest starting with 1,000–2,000 macros of combined EPA and DHA daily, preferably taken with a small amount of fat in the evening. Not a big meal, just something to help absorption.
And we must also honor food sources. Sardines, mackerel, even a small piece of grilled salmon can offer more than just omega-3. It carries tradition. And sometimes tradition heals in ways science cannot measure.
That's beautiful, and it reminds me nutrition is not just a list of nutrients. It's a practice, a rhythm, a relationship. Omega-3s are the architect behind the scenes, creating the conditions for recovery while you rest.
And when the conditions are right, healing returns, quietly, steadily, like the tide.
So there you have it, 5 nutrients, 5 quiet allies, and hopefully a new way to look at the hours between sunset and sunrise. Because aging isn't just about what you lose, it's about what you still have the power to rebuild if you give your body the right tools. Maybe you're listening to this podcast and thinking, I've already lost too much strength, too much energy. But I want to say something clearly. You are not too late. Your body has not forgotten how to heal. It may just be waiting for magnesium, for zinc, For rest, for respect.
In Japan, we say the night is not darkness. It is preparation. And when we sleep with intention, when we give the body what it needs, it responds. Not quickly, not loudly, but faithfully. Even at 70, 80, 90, the muscles still listen, the nerves still repair, the spirit still lifts when you stand without struggle.
So tonight, before you go to sleep, try something small. Take a moment. Sip a warm tea. Take your magnesium, your D3. Lay down not just to sleep, but to heal. And if this episode brought you clarity, hope, or just a few new ideas, please consider subscribing to the podcast. Hit that follow button, leave us a kind review, and more importantly, share this episode with someone you care about, a parent, a neighbor, a friend who needs to feel strong again.
Wisdom grows when it is shared, and strength returns when we stop fighting our age and start feeding it.
Doctor, thank you again for your wisdom, your calm, and your clarity.
And thank you for allowing two worlds to meet here, East and West, science and soul.
To everyone listening, sleep well, heal deeply, and don't let the night pass you by without giving your body something good to work with. We'll see you next time. This has been the Senior Health Podcast with Dr. Mark Hyman and Dr. Shigiyaki Hinohara. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it with someone you love. Because health isn't just about knowledge, it's about connection.